So for today, we are going to start with CloudFormation. This is one of the provisioning tools Amazon uses for automation, and it is slowly becoming popular and popular that it is getting more easier to use, in other words. So a lot of people have started using it, and there are stories in the wild that companies are completely using CloudFormation alone. Let me repeat that: only CloudFormation for deploying their environments. They are not using any Chef or Puppet or any other mechanisms outside AWS to use AWS environment. Standalone CloudFormation templates stored in S3 but version controlled using the Git or some kind of a version control system, and deploy your environments. And if something is changed, automatically stack update will happen. So CloudFormation is getting popular. So let us go ahead and see what is CloudFormation and how we can leverage CloudFormation to deploy our environments. So basically, this is the agenda for the next 1 hour. What is AWS CloudFormation, how to use it, what are the different use cases, what is the best practices, and finally a demo which we will show and tell what is the code and what the code exactly does. So the question that we are trying to answer here is, how do I provision my infrastructure? What are the tools that I have? What are the difficulties with the existing tools? That is my organizer calling. So that is my organizer checking up everything is good after the power cut. Okay. So the question that we are trying to answer here is, how do I provision my infrastructure in my cloud? What are the tools that I have? What are the problems that I'm trying to solve by using any tools that are existing there, and what are the problems that are there? So why is it exactly the problem is this? There are too many pieces of infrastructure that you need to configure properly for infrastructure to work. Let us take the simple example that I want to host a website, a very, very simple website. It is a single server website where the application code, the web server code, and everything, configuration, everything runs in a single server. Then I would still need to configure something like, let me find out where is my mouse pointer so I can highlight it. So I will still need a security group so that I can allow only restricted access, so that port 80, port 443 is only used. I will need a VPC so that my security group is tied in with my VPC, and only certain IPs are configured to my certain instances. And then I will need a Route 53 hosted zone so that I can assign my domain name, that is my friendly domain name www.kumar.com, can be pointed to my server. And I need a server also here, and I need an elastic IP if I'm going to give the public IP to my route 53, or if you are using route 53 itself, I might not need this, but depending upon the type of configuration I use, I might need this also. So routing tables also will be required because I need an internet access for my VPC. So I will have to create a routing table so that all internet traffic goes out. And if I have static content in my website, I will need an S3 bucket as well. So although I said it is a single server website, depending upon if my website is having a lot of peak load and a very low load, let us say in the morning time I have 100% of my average load, and in my evening time I have only 10% of my average load, then I will need something like an auto scaling to scale up my machine, bump up my machine. So think of all the bits and pieces that gets automatically added for a very single website, that is a single web server instance. I need to configure all these pieces to work together smoothly so that I can make my website run. So, and if you have some problems with any one of them, then your instance or your web server or your company is going to have a problem with it. So how do you do that consistently? Let us say you set up the website once and something happens and you want to set it up again. How do you repeat that process? You need to go through all the process again. So this is where the error comes in, and people are having troubles doing that because it is quite time consuming, and it is not easy to repeat it, and quite often errors comes in because you are repeating 10 to 20 steps in each of those configurations, and it is quite possible that one or two steps will be missed by that person who is doing it. And if you're doing 10, 20 steps, you might ask somebody else to do it, and that person might miss it, and you are not able to clearly audit whether that person has completed his steps. Let us say all the network is given to another networking guy, and then building the static website content and then putting it in S3 is given to another person. So these people have to set up the permissions for each of them to work very nicely. If one of them has not set it up, that is not going to work. Then how do you trace it? Where is the problem? Where is the audit logs of who is doing what in your account? So using the console, this is one of the means of setting up your environment. You get all the problems that is listed at the bottom, all of these things. So using the console is not an option because it is very, very slow. I would not recommend it, and companies are no longer is going to use this mechanism unless they are setting up a very, very simple one. Even for a simple one, I'm saying think of just uploading and file to a bucket, then the console works best. But when you're talking about a single web server with elastic IPs and Route 53, no, this is not going to be repeatable at all. Do not ever recommend this to a client of using the console. Only when something is really difficult and you are going to troubleshoot, then you go to the console. So what other means are there for me to provision my environment? Write a script. Is that even possible? I can write a script. Yes, you can. But what if an API call to the web server fails? Because when you're writing a script, you are indirectly interacting with AWS environment. You are talking to the APIs that Amazon has configured, and the API has to give you the appropriate response. To give you an example, let us say your first command in a script is to create an VPC. So it should return back the VPC ID. Based on that VPC ID only, you can create a subnet and then assign the subnet to a NACL. So if the first call to create an VPC is failed, how do you track that? Do you write a validation for each and every command output that is returning from the server? So then your script will have a lot of validations than the actual command itself. And when you're writing a script, how do you update your environment? Say, for example, you want to change the one small value in your script. Say the IP address of your public server no longer needs to be 1.2.3.4. It needs to be 5.6.7.8. So if you change it, how do you ensure that the entire environment does not get rebuilt and only the IP address gets changed? Unless you run the whole script, your IP address is not going to be sent to the server. So you cannot just run one line, one command. That means if you're going to write one command, that means you're using the console again, not the script. So this option is also having a problem. So when you're running a script, you cannot roll it back. That is, you cannot stop the script in mid of it and then say that whatever you have done so far, if roll it back. Like let us say there are 10 steps and your seventh step has failed or seventh step is having a problem. So what do you do with the remaining 6 steps that is already completed successfully? How do you ensure that whatever is done in the first 6 steps stays there, or how do you remove it? So is there a rollback option? So if there is a rollback option, do you write the additional commands inside your script itself? And how do you pass the control saying that step number 7 is failed and initiate the rollback? So in other words, you're writing a lot of management logic in your script rather than provisioning logic in your script. So you need to separate these two things, the management of the environment and script and the provisioning logic, that is the resources in your script. So to manage and maintain a script properly, I would not put too much management logic there. I will keep it outside. So that is a very good scripting practice that I usually follow and tends to be working out for me very well. If you have a better practice, share it with me. I will also learn from you guys. And finally, there is one more interesting thing that we need to note, and that is very, very important. How long should I pause for? Sometimes what happens is because of internet latencies, you might be sitting in India like me and then trying to create an environment in, let us say, Amazon, Virginia region or an Oregon region. There is internet latencies. Let us accept that fact. How long should a script should wait for an output from that command? If an VPC is taking 5 to 10 minutes to build, do you think that a script has failed, or do you completely wait for 5 to 10 minutes and then trigger a failure? So how long do you exactly wait for some activity to be completed? A VPC might not be a good example. Think of starting up a server. especially if you're starting a server, EC2 server, and attaching an EBS volume, and let us say that you are going to attach a provisioned IOPS EBS disk of, let us say, 100 GB alone, just 100 GB. We can go to terabytes, but let us start a GB of 100 G, disk of 100 GB. How many of you have done that? 100 GB disk and try to provision it with provisioned IOPS. So continuing here, how long should I wait? How long should I pause for? That is the problem with when you're writing a script. The API calls will not necessarily return to you like how much it is going to take for completing a certain action. So writing a script is better than using in console, but it has the pitfalls that is listed in the bottom. So you have one more option finally, that is use CloudFormation if you know it. So let us go ahead and see what is CloudFormation and how we can do that. So a single one-line definition of what is CloudFormation is it is an Amazon service for provisioning resources, and you can create resources in a predictable and repeatable and automated way. When I say predictable, that means that you run the script, or when you run the template, let us start calling it as a template because it is not a script, it is a template. When you run the template any number of times, you get the same predictable output. If the resources with a certain IP address is already there, the template will come back and say, or the service, AWS CloudFormation service will come back and say, you already have a resource which is having this IP address, so I cannot redo this activity, and it will throw an error, and it will roll back all the previous steps depending upon what is the options that you chose. So it gives a very predictable output. And if you run a script before, if you want to do the same steps in a script and it is trying to find the same result, it doesn't give a very friendly error message. It will rather give you an error message saying, I cannot create an VPC, so I'm exiting the script, blah, blah, blah. It will just control out of it. The control will come out to the prompt and it will give you an error message. And you need to start finding out which step of your script failed and try to find out why it is, and then go dig all the way through the script. It is very, very difficult to troubleshoot when you're running a script. Trust me, that is very, very problematic when your script is more than 100 lines. Unless you are a super coder, you know exactly what is the problem. So moving on, what is repeatable? Predictable and repeatable is more or less closer, because predictable is you know the outcome and you're going to expect that outcome. Repeatable is you're confident that if you run it 10 times, 20 times, the same outcome will also come, and in an automated way, because everything is done through console, which has means of logging all the requests, which has a means of tracking all the requests, and if there is any changes in any of the request, you can manage it, and you can manage the versions of your script, versions of your stack, and roll back the stack also if something goes wrong. That is also possible, and most of the activities is automated using API calls, and all the API calls are tracked. If you know the service called CloudTrail. Anybody familiar with CloudTrail? Okay, if you're not,
Yes,
every
yes, we are.
every API call to AWS is tracked using Amazon CloudTrail, and of course you need to go and enable it. If it is a new account, by default it will not be there, but if you go ahead and enable it and point it to a particular bucket destination, you can send all the CloudTrail logs to one bucket, or depending upon how you want to filter it and segregate it, you can send it to multiple places. The idea is to use CloudTrail logs and CloudWatch logs to understand what is going wrong with CloudFormation when some template goes wrong. So what can you do? Let us look at it a little bit in more. What is the benefits of using CloudFormation? CloudFormation allows you to create a templated provisioning system. Meaning, let us say today you have set up a stack. When I say stack, I'm talking about a network layer, I'm talking about a data layer, I'm talking about application layer, and then the web layer. So we are talking about a three-tier architecture, very simple example. And you have set it up in India now. So your manager comes up and says, Harsha, you have done a great work. I want you to do replicate it in Oregon region now. So how do you do that? If you're doing it in console, you do go through all the 200, 300 clicks that you have to do. Or if you're running a script, you can rerun it again, assuming that your script is flawless and having no issues. But if you have a template, all you have to do is just go to the corresponding region and point to the same template and ask the template to be run again. And the same VPC stack and then the same network stack, everything will be created as it is. if your template is good, your stack will be created any number of times. Item portable, that is what they call it. Any number of times you run it, you will get the same output as long as the outputs are not conflicting here. So you can
But can we do the same with bash scripts too?
Bash scripts, you're asking me?
Yeah, I'm just asking, can we
Yeah,
do
yeah,
the
I
same
understand. I just
procedure
want
with
to know
bash
with bash
scripts?
scripts. Yes, you can do the same thing, but the problem with the bash script, as we discussed, is the API calls, the rollback logs, and then choosing the control between one flow to another flow, and changing a particular line or a configuration item in a script. All those things are becoming a problem. Let me go back to the same example of a three-tier architecture: data layer, app layer, and web layer. And your manager says, instead of let us reverse the scenario. The first scenario, you have built it in America now, and then everything is working fine. And let us say you have 10 database servers for necessity, and when you come to India, or let us say Middle East, where the traffic is going to be less, and your manager says, Asha, go ahead and remove the 10 servers and just build me 2 servers. So you are basically going to edit the script where it says 10 to number to 2, and you are going to ensure that whoever is editing it is not making introducing any other errors in your bash script. You can write it configurable or parameterized, but then means you are taking an input from your command prompt and validating it from your user. If the user is introducing any extra characters, that is again the responsibility of the person who is coding it. So make sure that the person is inputting the exact values that is required by your script. So all this additional management logic is coming into your script. To answer your question, it is possible to do it in bash script, but that also introduces some additional management logic, which makes a script management very difficult. So keep those drawbacks in mind when you're trying to propose bash scripts to your client for configuration management or provisioning management. Whereas when you come to CloudFormation, you can do that with something called parameters. We will look at how we can avoid parameter mistakes by using a drop-down field or provisioning it using a predefined values. So templated provisioning absolutely is possible. It is straightforward. Just copy the template again and again and run them as many times as you want. What other benefits are there? Infrastructure as code, of course, it explains for itself. I don't have to even speak about it. Your entire infrastructure is written in a JSON or a YAML format. CloudFormation uses both these formats. So your templates can be stored in or the infrastructure can be stored in a version control system. It's interesting to think of it that way. I have a configuration of a network layer, database layer, storage layer stored in a version control system, and something changes, I can go ahead and trigger a change and make sure that the new infrastructure is getting built. And again, I'm going to start using the word stack. You track all the changes made to your infrastructure stack because it is in a version control system. And if somebody is going and changing, let us say the web service changed from 10 to 2 for Indian region, automatically the corresponding Indian administrators or Indian service managers will get a notification saying your web servers have been scaled down from 10 to 2. Do you want to take some corrective action, or is this the approved action? So go ahead and approve it. You can trigger a workflow like that based on your track changes options by using infrastructure as code, and modify and update resources in a controlled and predictable way. Self-explanatory. You can go ahead and update separate sections and make sure that your stack works every time when you run it in a different region. And since it is version controlled, and just an additional pointer, when we are doing an enterprise level deployments, all the stack templates are more or less is going to be inside your S3 buckets. And even if you upload it to Amazon using the Amazon dashboard, it is going to be a copy of it is going to be copied to your Amazon S3 bucket. A bucket will be created for you, or the file will be put into a general bucket in your account. And then from there only a stack will be created, and automatically versioning will also be enabled for you. So a track is always kept for you for the code that you are using in CloudFormation. So in other words, whatever you do is version controlled and tracked so that it is very, very predictable whenever there's a change happening in your code or in your infrastructure, in other words. Moving forward, it is very declarative and flexible. It is not very difficult to pick up. You choose whatever resources you want at the top of it, and then you can customize your template to the use of parameters. The parameters I chose about, for example, how many web servers you want. And let us say you are a Microsoft friendly company. You want to run all your VMs, or let us say VMs only for now, all your VMs on Windows based machines. You don't want to use any Linux based machines. Then you can ensure that all the AMIs that your clients or users of your CloudFormation template using are going to see only Windows AMIs, because you are going to create a parameter which will list all the Windows AMIs. And first use case was a Windows friendly company. Next use case is a security friendly company. Then you can say that only the latest operating system images only will be allowed for the users to be created. So when they try to choose an AMI, or the drop down option will list only the latest AMIs. Next is then configuration management deployment use case. That is, let us say your company says that I need to have a data center in the East Coast, I need to have a data center in the West Coast, and in both the data centers, I need to use a minimum of 2 availability zones. Then that also you can enforce on your users, saying in Virginia, out of the 6 data centers, use 1 and the C, that is 1A and 1C. And Oregon, this is 2 data centers that you have, that is AC1, AC2, use these 2. You can enforce these kind of behaviors. I repeat it, you are indirectly enforcing good practices or best practices on your users. When I say users, I'm talking about CloudFormation users. The guys who write the CloudFormation scripts might be different. It might be the same person who is the end user also. But when I'm referring to as users, they are people who consume the CloudFormation templates, and you are enforcing such good behavior or standard practices from your users by using parameters and validation fields. So that is what it makes it very declarative and very flexible as well. So resources and stacks, how do I reuse my stacks? We have some couple of nice imagery. I just wanted to show the imagery skills. So I just put up this slide. Let us go ahead and see that. It might be true, it might not be true, but let us find out. Let us say you have a website one, and the website one requires an auto scaling, that is elastic load balancer, auto scaling, and RDS. So these are the 3 fields that we are talking about now. And let us say that I have one more website, that is website 2, which also has a similar requirement, that is elastic load balancer, auto scaling, and DynamoDB. So if you see the website 1 required RDS and website 2 requires DynamoDB. That is the only difference, but both of them need an ELB and auto scaling. So how do I avoid rewriting this code for ELB and auto scaling? Is there an option? So that is where the nested templates are coming into picture. That means that what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate my ELB and auto scaling code into a separate template. Let me call it as a network or a network template or network stack. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one more template or one more CloudFormation stack for website 1. And website 1 will refer to my ELB and auto scaling template, and it will have code only for RDS. And when it comes to website 2, I will have one more template for nested stack and DynamoDB. This way I'm going to reuse. Yeah, I was suspecting that. Let me just wind back, since some of you might have not heard everything. I'm just going to wind back a little bit. So let us say you have a website 1, which is a requirement for creating a very simple website of RDS, that is the database layer, and then your auto scaling for your application layer, and then you have ELB. So the load balancer sends the traffic to auto scaling application layer, and application layer sends it to the database. So this is website 1. Website 2 is very similar, but it is using DynamoDB as the backend. ELB is there, auto scaling is there, DynamoDB is also there. So instead of writing my ELB and auto scaling scripts 2 times and trying to maintain it in 2 different places, whereas only my database layer is different. So I will remove the ELB and auto scaling code to a separate template, so that this template will always deal with ELB and auto scaling, and only the input parameters or values will change for this depending upon website 1 and website 2. And for website 1, I will create another template, that is here, and then you have only an RDS stack here. It will refer to the network layer here. So this is called nested stacking. In other words, I will run this. When you do something like this, what happens is this command will go ahead and check this stack It will run this first, take the outputs from here, what is the ELB value, what is the auto scaling value, and pass it to my RDS now. And my RDS will start running. So when it comes to website 2, again it will go to this stack, run my ELB, run my auto scaling, and pass the outputs to my website 2, and then it will start running my DynamoDB. My apologies for the disturbance there. So continuing, so we have removed the repeatable code into a separate stack and pointing it using nested stacks. It is possible, absolutely. And this way you can reduce the management work or reuse the work that has been already done for the best practices here and there. So this way, you're the network guy. Let us say he's the network guy and he is doing all the network stack and ensures that your network layer is very good. And this guy is going to be very, very happy because his work is not duplicated 2 times. And these two guys are also happy because website 1 template is becoming very, very easy to manage. He or she has to just point it to the existing template and make sure that if something goes wrong, point a finger at network guy and say he didn't do that properly and I did my DynamoDB very well. So this way everybody is happy and everybody is focusing on the core skills. So use nested stacks for reusability, and especially if you find yourself writing a script and rewriting the same script again or same logic again and again, that means you are doing it wrong. Do not rewrite or do not repeat yourself. This is a industry level best practices, whether it comes to scripting, whether it comes to templates. Do not repeat yourself again and again. Try to find out how to avoid that by moving certain segments of code outside of the logic. Moving forward, how do I plan my stack? This is one of the most important pieces of information that I'm going to share, whether it is CloudFormation or Boto or Amazon CLI or any environment that you want to provision. I would like you to focus on the next 5 to 10 minutes here, because this is common across however you want to do it. When you want to plan something in the AWS cloud or any environment, I would say this is a very good best practices, and it is shared by Amazon itself. It is not something that I am making up. I picked up this best practice from one of Amazon's conferences, and I really like it as well. I do it, I practice it myself. It's kind of saying, eat your own dog food. What you preach, you practice. So when you're building a network stack or when you're building a cloud environment, the first thing that you need to focus is IAM roles. Might be sound like counterintuitive. Why would somebody want to start with user ID? Because user ID you are going to create on the servers. No, that is wrong, absolutely. Because IAM is a global role and it is applicable all over all the regions. It is more easy to start IAM role in the beginning and make sure the roles that are necessary to start a server and connect it to the database, all those things are built in before itself with the necessary permissions, or in other words, policies. So you create a role, assign the necessary permissions, and you start the server with the role. Whereas in a conventional environment, what you do is you build your operating system, do the security, you install your application, then try to create a user ID and give the user ID permissions. That is how it happens in a traditional world. But we are inverting the logic here. We are going to start with your IAM users, groups, and roles and policies, and we are going to use that when our server is going to be provisioned. So first is IAM. Next, the network layer, the VPCs, internet gateways, VPNs, NATs, NACLs, whatever you can think of networks, that is what you are going to build next. And this is going to be applying for particular, now we are going to focus narrower and narrower to your region or your availability zone or your application stack. So we are going to build a network layer, which is going to decide which region we are going to use. It is going to decide what is the ACs we are going to use, internet gateways, and all those things. After we do that, let us go up. We are going to create our shared services, something like which is going to be common across multiple availability zones. The commonality elements, the shared elements across your network layer. Then you start building your backend systems, that is database layer or any backends for Elasticache or a Redis or a Memcache. That is your data layer or backend services. I've chosen an examples here rather than putting a service name, but this is what exactly it means. When you're talking about a backend, you're going to talk about data services and all those things. Then you build your front-end services. I'm looking at it from an application perspective rather than from an Amazon service perspective. So that is what the stack is building. So we started from IAM, then the network layer, then the shared services which cuts across all the services, then your backend layer, then your front end where your customer is entering your business. It might be a customer facing website, it might be a mobile front end or a backend or mobile app, or your seller or your partner is using these services. So finally, you put together, you get something like this now. So once you have all the stacks available and ready, then you build your development, dev 1, dev 2, integration or prod. I mean, your customer will give you the names for your environment. This is just a simple naming convention that I have chosen. Absolutely, you can welcome to choose something like dev, UAT, end-to-end testing, E2E. I have seen all kinds of variation in my career. There was something called just pre-prod. I don't understand. There will be a test environment also when I was working for that account, and there was a pre-prod in between test and prod. I still don't understand that, but anyway, they have different naming convention. You go ahead and have different naming convention or what comply with what your client requests you. In other words, more or less in production, you will definitely have one or two environments behind your prod so that your testing happens and so that your code and everything is tested before you go online. So I said one or two environments. I'm going to show you some deployment models which is completely invert this dev test prod logic. That is completely in DevOps world. It is completely changing. Let us go ahead and see some of those deployment logics now. So before we see the deployment logic, there are some use cases. Here, slightly I'm touching the deployments if you notice the third point, but we'll come to that now. So the multiple use cases are there in CloudFormation. One is stack replication. We saw that we are replicating from India to US or China. China, it is not there. Let us take Australia. And just quick question, guys. How many of you know that in China, AWS is not there? So getting back, stack replication, you can replicate it all across Amazon's data centers and regions. And infrastructure scale out, yes, it is possible. You can configure auto scaling built into your template itself, and you can configure all the necessary rules. I'm going to get some water. So you can scale out, infrastructure scale out as well as scale in is possible because you are going to write in the auto scaling rules inside your template itself, or you can make it a configurable parameterized value, say that so that your user can choose what is the CPU load that he is expecting on his stack, and then he can customize it also. The finally is the blue-green deployments. It's a very interesting thing. Nowadays companies are going to have are going already having only two environments in their cloud deployments. That is, one is blue and one is green. Let us say the green one is a production serving live traffic, and then you are trying to do some deployments and keep some developments. So if you want to do testing, what happens is the stack is updated on the stack is getting updated on the blue environment, and then every testing happens on the blue environment. And once the stack is getting completed and once the stack is completely ready for production use, the ELB or the Route 53 is pointed to your blue environment now, so that your current green becomes blue and your blue becomes green. In other words, you just swap the environments. So in other words, your test becomes your prod because it has the latest version of the code which has been tested and running, and your prod is having older version of the code and becomes your test environment for next level of deployments. So you keep on swapping again and again until you're ready for the next deployments. So the reason people do this is it makes it very easy for managing the environments. You don't have multiple environments to manage, and it also ensures that you have a production copy of environment always ready and available if something goes wrong. In other words, your blue, which is used for testing, can also be reverted back to the previous stack, because remember, all the stacks were all version controlled and infrastructure is a code now. you're going to deploy new code on top of the existing code. So if something is not working, you just go back to your old environment and say that this is the one I am running and this is the version that hashtag, let us say version 6 is the latest code, working, tested and fine, roll back to version 6 and everything comes back here. So two environments, blue-green deployments, everything happens fresh as well. And this is, I talked about a deployment model where an existing environment is updated. Sometimes what happens is when you're doing container-based deployments, the entire blue stack is rebuilt from ground up and then tested, and then it is going to be deployed to the cloud. So this is how a blue-green deployment works, and it is getting slowly popular. And DevOps-based deployments almost always fall under blue-green deployments because it is very easy to recreate environments when we are talking about container-based deployments. So this is the one deployment model I spoke about. It will come again one more time in the slide. I don't want to talk about infrastructure as code. You already know that what it means. Let us move forward. These are the different terminologies that we need to remember when we are talking about CloudFormation. These are the different components that CloudFormation has. The first piece of the puzzle is template. This is the place where all your parameters, resource configurations, and the configuration actions are written down. This is the piece where you put in everything what you need. And how do you put in? You use either a JSON format or an YAML format. I'm not going to say what you should choose. Personally, I started using YAML now because I find it more easy to learn and more easy to understand when something goes wrong. JSON looks more structured, especially programming languages like JSON, because it has lot of brackets, lot of commas, and it gives a sense of order when you look at it. But troubleshooting point of view, maintenance point of view, is in my opinion at least is difficult because a lot of commas, lot of brackets means there's a possibility that I'm going to miss one of them and the template is going to cry foul that I did not do it properly. So I don't want to do that headache. I started using JSON. One of my original templates when I started writing it was in JSON, but the latest one that I wrote is in YAML only, and I really like it. And I find a lot of people with the same argument. So I will leave that up to you on which format you want to choose. You can choose JSON or YAML. Go ahead and try to learn whichever format you like. If you already know one, specialized in one, start continuing in the same thing. So that is the first part of the puzzle now. So you have written the template.
So Kumar,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. Just a quick question. So Yama, which language is it?
OAML.
It's, yeah.
YAML is nothing but yet another markup language. I will show you when I'm
Okay.
showing the demo. I'll show you how an YAML looks like. It's a format. It's not a language. If I've ever mentioned
Okay.
as a language, it is. I would say it is a markup language, meaning it's a syntax. You can say how to write a file. That's it. It's not a separate language as its own. Does that
Fair
answer
enough.
your
Okay.
question? Silence. Okay. So
Yeah, that answers my question. Thanks.
yep. Okay. So again, if I made the error of saying either one of them is a language, it is my mistake. Neither of them is a language. Both of them is a format or a syntax. Think of it like a formula you have, like you need to write it something in a particular way, then we just follow the same thing. That is what both of them. JavaScript object notation, that is JSON, yet another markup language, which is a notepad based tab or in tab editing or space based differences will be there. We will see that when you are looking at the template. So the first piece of the puzzle was writing the template itself. Assuming that we have done it, what we do is the next step is we upload it to Amazon CloudFormation service, and Amazon CloudFormation service has these features. You can create a stack, you can update a stack, you can detect errors and do rollbacks. When we say rollbacks, let us say step number 7 has failed, then you have an option, a checkbox. Actually speaking, you say that remove all the steps that you have done from 1 to 6 from my account. Do not keep any of the resources that was created in step number 1 to 6. Remove all of them, and it will remove it completely. There will be no traces of it. But if you don't check that box which says no rollback, you ensure that there is no rollback, and you want to troubleshoot what went wrong, then 1 to step will be in your account, so that you have to go and clean it up later. So that is what a rollback means. And error detection help. I mean, if you are having an error, keeping the stack is helpful to find out where is the error, because everything goes away or everything disappears. You don't know where was the problem, but you have an error in your hand. So troubleshooting, that is the way you troubleshoot when you're creating a CloudFormation template. So finally, assuming that you have created your template and put it into your service, and a stack is created. Once your stack is created, you can have service event aware customize. I mean, service, it's not written properly, but anyway, the point is you can make your entire stack aware of events that is happening around it. You can trigger, let us say the CloudFormation stack is completed successfully, then you can ask your third-party services to start sending traffic, or you can trigger some other Lambda actions or some other actions in AWS itself, or you can send an email using SES notification saying the stack has been completed. Service manager, be happy, everything went line online successfully, something like that. You can trigger any downstream actions based on the stack events, and it is fully customizable also. And once again, I repeat that I wouldn't want to create those management logic inside my stack itself. It is quite possible I can create an SES notification or SNS notification inside my stack itself, but that means that I am having additional logic in my stack, which is not necessary for my stack itself. So although it sounds very easy to put in a SNS notification topic inside your stack itself for triggering a notification to your target users, do not do that. I wouldn't advise it. Those kind of notifications should be something separate. What it should ideally happen is when a stack is completed, you should take the success message or the status message, and then subscribe it to that channel or a notification topic, and then trigger one more action on top of that. It should be outside the stack itself, not inside the stack. So moving forward, let us look at what is a template in detail and what are the important things. We are going to do a little bit of a biology class here. Let us going to break up the template piece by piece and learn that. So looks like, guys, I need some warm water to drink. Anyway, I've ordered something. So this is the biology class we are going to talk about. On the left hand side is an YAML template. It is not the complete template. It is just a description of what are all the important things. Let us say the red accented tags are all the keywords, and the green color things are things that you will write most probably. As you might have already read, the version date is not mandatory as on today, but I would very strongly recommend to put the version date in your templates. The reason is, with every version, Amazon has certain kind of APIs supported, and using this version date only, Amazon will know what APIs that you are expecting. Say, for example, today they have 10 services and there are API calls for those 10 services. Amazon will support it. And tomorrow they are going to launch a new service and there is a new API call. And that new API call might be different from the previous 10 API calls. Then, so to accommodate the difference, Amazon will create a new version number, and then everybody will have to start using the new version number to work properly with the new API calls. When something like that changes, you need to be aware that your template is not going to work properly if you don't mention the version number, because Amazon wants to create those two kind of traffic separately, and that is how they differentiate it using the version dates. And suddenly, if you find all of the 100 templates you have written is not having the version number or version date, you will have to go and edit all of them, and that becomes exercise of its own. So we don't want to do that later. It is always a best practice, and let us follow that. Put in the version number. It is nothing but the date, and Amazon will automatically add it when you are using the console. Do not try to delete it because it is useless as of now. So that is the most important bit of it and why it is important. Moving forward, Resources, we are jumping a little bit down, but that does not should not be concerned. The resources is the meat of the CloudFormation template. And when I say meat, it is the interesting bits of the CloudFormation template. So the resources, this is the place where you are going to write or inform Amazon what are the resources you need. I need a VPC, I need an Elastic Load Balancer, I need a EC2, blah, 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 blah things. This is where you write all those things. There are a set of commands on how you have to write it. We will see that when you are writing a resource. So, but remember that all those things that you need from Amazon, you are going to write under the resources. Everything has to be indented, 4 spaces or 8 spaces, whatever you're using, it should be consistent throughout the template. This is the one important golden rule that we need to follow in YAML templates. If you're going to use 4 spaces for the first line and the second line, so if I'm going to write something, let us say AWS EC2, and below that I need to give 2 more spaces or 4 more spaces, whichever I have chosen here. So always use a consistent spacing, whether it is 2 or 4 or 1 tab or 2 tabs, in other words. So that is the only requirement or only rule that YAML template enforces on you. And let me repeat, if you are going to miss even 1 space, YAML template will not work. If the commas and brackets are a problem with JSON templates, spaces are your nightmare in YAML templates. So, and it is not very difficult to validate an YAML template. It is very, very easy. There are so many online tools. You just have to copy paste your YAML into some online tool and say that whether validate my YAML is fine, and it will confirm to you whether it is fine, or it will offer to correct it also. So keep the spaces in mind. Let us moving back. Resources we have covered, and description string. If anybody wants an explanation, I can go ahead and do that, but I would feel this is very, very self-explanatory here. The fact is, if you want to know what is inside your template and you want to give a very nice description to that for anybody who is using the template, so you put in that information in your description field. Parameters, as of now, it is not required. It is a place where you customize your template so that anybody can use it, and it is a place where you make your template general and available for reuse. Say for example, you hard code your template for your department, saying ABC department always likes EC2 D3 large or C4 large, and they always use Linux instances. And a HR team also wants to use a similar setup, but only difference is they don't want such a big servers. They want to have a M4 system. They don't want a C4 system. So for that they don't want to write the entire template. If you parameterize only the type of systems, then you can reuse the template within both the departments. So make it generalized so that multiple departments in your companies can reuse it. That is why you need parameters, and it is not mandatory but good practice. Mappings. Remember the use case about security I spoke about, using the latest machine images, or the use case about using multiple availability zones. So if you're using an Oregon region and then you are particularly favorable of particular ACs in that Oregon region, you can enforce that behavior using mappings. That is what mappings is. And once again, it is not a mandatory requirement in the template. So as of now, you see that only resources was the only mandatory section in the template, and so far nothing else is required. That is what the first line means. Conditions. Again, let us say you are asking an input for say your VPC, and the input for an VPC is what? Anybody wants to volunteer? What is the pieces of information you need for an VPC? So the reason we were talking about the conditions and VPCs is it is possible that when you're creating a VPC, you want to take the CIDR range from your user, and when a user is inputting a CIDR range, you need to validate whether that is a valid CIDR range. Are they giving some pre-existing CIDR, or is that they are giving something like a /43? It will not work, of course. So you need to validate, and that validation you can enforce that behavior by using conditions. In other words, let us say your company is using a particular series of IP addresses, and you want the user to create the stack inside that particular series of IP addresses. Then you use that by using, you enforce that behavior by using conditions. Or say, for example, all the network elements should be using the same SSH keys. Then you can enforce that behavior by using a condition key, which will force them to allow or choose only a certain set of keys that is in your account. That keys I'm talking about SSH keys, which might be you generated or Amazon generated, but you can enforce that behavior using this field. So finally, outputs, you can write your script to give you outputs. You can ignore this field completely if you are not expecting any output. But if you want to trigger some notifications, if you want to trigger some actions, or if you have a nested stack, especially as it says cross stack references, you definitely need to write an output section, because this output is an input for the next stack. Say this is a network stack. You need to know the VPC ID, you need to know the subnet ID, you need to know the internet gateway, you need to know the, let us say you're building a load balancer, you need to know the domain name or the URL of the load balancer. All those outputs will form your input for your application stack, because application needs to receive the traffic from a particular security group where your ELB is residing. So you see the flow here. So ELB security group will have outbound rules to allow traffic from application group. Or in other words, like that will be sending traffic to application group, and application group will have an outbound traffic to ELB group. So this is how you take the input from one stack and pass the input to another stack and make sure your stacks are all working nicely. So output field is basically for that reason and nothing else. If your cross stack references 100% necessary, or if you have a single stack, you don't have a lot of cross stacks, it is still also is good to see. Let us say you started a web server and you want to know the public IP of the web server. Instead of logging into the server, you can go to the template and get it, and template will have the public IP of the server ready and available for you. So that is about the template anatomy. Our biology class is completed. Let us go ahead and deploy it. Let us go to physics now. So deployment styles, blue-green deployments, if anybody is not understanding it, I can happily explain it, but I'm going to give a pause and let you guys digest it. So on the left-hand side is the in-place upgrade. That means that you have a stack on the left-hand side running the latest version of the code. All shiny new code has come now from the developers. Then what you do is from here, you update it or apply all the updates here. And then this stack becomes this one. And then you point all the traffic to here, and then you get a newer stack available. It is very fast because you are having only one stack to update, and then it is very cost efficient because you are running only one environment. You are not running multiple environments, and it is simple, and data migration is not necessary because every data that has been attached here is also available here. It is an in situation upgrade. It is, think of you are having a house and you're upgrading the same house again and again to make it looking better and better with the newer furniture, newer kitchen, and all sorts of things. It is very simple, cost efficient, and faster. But the downside is if something goes wrong, you cannot roll back because everything is updated and everything is shiny new. Your rollback is going to be a little bit difficult. It is going to take a little bit more time, I would say, to roll back, especially when you're using even a CloudFormation template. You need to find out what is wrong and then you roll back. It takes some about 5-10 minutes. I mean, not more than 5-10 minutes, but some businesses cannot wait even 5 and 10 minutes. Let me put the question this way rather. How many of you guys have seen an outage with, say, google.com or Microsoft.com? We don't use Microsoft.com or Bing.com, but still Office 365 when you're using it in the enterprise. Yeah, almost never it gives an 404 page or page cannot be displayed or I cannot show you the results and busy, something like that. Because those guys have a deployment mechanism which completely hides those kind of error messages, or it makes sure that end user does not suffer any difficulty when they are deploying new code. So blue-green deployments, that is where it comes in, because you have an deployment that is all running and deploying production traffic and taking care of production traffic, and you can see this arrow mark here. that is route 53 is sending all the production requests through your stack here. So you create another stack and do all your testing, do all your testing and create another environment. That is, this is your new template, and from a new template you have created your stack. This is your stack, and do all your testing. When your testing is successful, your testing team says that there is no blocking issue, everything is fantastic, let us go ahead and launch it. Then what you do is you make your route 53 point to your new stack, and your old stack is still there, by the way. So what happens is all your production traffic starts coming here and everything is fine. You are not touching an existing stack. That is, your working stack is always there, still there, but you have a new stack which is ready to take care of production traffic. So only downside is you have running two stacks which is full scale, and you are going to incur a lot of cost for it. But the upside is you are going to have a very quick backout plan or a quick failure plan, because all you're going to do is point your route 53 traffic to here because it is running, and your old working code is here, and the new working code which is having the problem is not impacted or not rolled into this one. So your rollback is almost instantaneous, I can say. It's just pointing route 53 to the old one, as simple as that. Very highly costly because you are running two different deployments, but very fault tolerant, I can say, because it doesn't show all the problems of your deployment to your customers, and your customers don't even know that you're upgrading on the background, you change something on the background, just like we experience in Google or Facebook. So you have listened to me for some time now. It is almost 1.5 hours I'm talking. So if anybody wants to volunteer and try to answer this question, let us make it interactive. So there are a few best practices to ensure that your stack is running error free. First is validate your templates. How do I validate my template? Amazon gives a nice little interface and it checks for syntactical errors. It does not check you for cyclical errors. For example, one cyclical error is let us say you are trying to expect a load balancer, and then you are trying to expect I'm not able to clearly formulate a cyclic error. Will come to that, but anyway, it doesn't check for your logic. It just checks for your syntax, whether it is JSON syntax or YAML syntax. That is what Amazon validation does. And then another best practice for making sure you are going to have an error-free template is parameterize most of the fields wherever possible. Because if you parameterize and then do mappings and conditions, you are going to restrict the type of input your users are going to give into the template, and that way you are going to have a little bit of freedom. I mean, they have a little bit of freestyle form to work with. They don't introduce a special character which might break your template. They don't use some X1 large machine or X large machine which will break the budget of the company. So you parameterize wherever the input field you are taking in. Let us say you're asking for an AMI ID from a customer. Then you do a validation for the saying that AMI hyphen 8 characters alphanumeric has to be there, and there is no special characters. So you do a validation inside your template or enforce them by saying these are the AMI IDs, these are the description for each of the AMI IDs, what is the one that you want to use. So things like that. So this way you avoid errors, and then use deletion policies. When I say deletion policies, I'm talking about do not keep the if you know that your template is going to run fine, if you know that your template is having no errors, already pre-checked it. When you're running the template, ask your users to enable the rollback policy, so that when something is running and at the 10th step there is a problem, you roll back the errors, because in production environments you don't want to have resources which is half configured. Say the take example of the EBS volume that we spoke about. You have an application server and you want 100 GB provisioned IOPS EBS disk available, and you're waiting for that input. And you, while your provisioning has happened, you don't want to start writing data to it, assuming that action is completed. or if the provisioning has failed for some reason, let us say Amazon has had a rare problem and provision has failed, and your subsequent code should not run on that point because your disk is not available and your application server is, in other words, not available, although the request has been completed successfully. So your subsequent code should stop processing, and this whatever server that you have created up to that point, all those things has to be rolled back. You don't want those resources. I am taking an example of 100 terabyte, 100 GB of disk, but if it is a terabyte, although Amazon storage is cheaper, you don't want to have a lot of disks hanging here and there in your account, which is not going to be used for certain reasons. For troubleshooting purpose, you might need it, but otherwise you don't need it at all. So do not leave your resources half built or half baked resources in your account. Always clean them up. And finally,
Yeah, Kumar. So it actually happened to me. I forgot to turn off.
yeah, you are not alone.
Yeah.
It happened to me as well. So it's
Yeah.
lessons learned.
Yeah. Then I spoke to.
Lucky for you. And that is not the first time I'm hearing that story as well. And I have recommended a few people, and 40 bucks is big there, means let us say 5,000 rupees in India is also big money here. And I wouldn't recommend this as a best practice, but if you're a newcomer and if you go to Amazon with a honest explanation, most of the times the customer reps or front end reps are understanding, and they look at certain parameters also in your account. It's not like they just blindly give out discounts for your account or in your cost billing. They roll back most of the billing if you are a genuine customer, if your account is new, all those kind of cases. And I have seen many people get some discounts if that is the first mistake that they have made. And if it is a smaller amount, not for a crazy amount, like you start an X1 large and then say that I made a mistake and run it for 30 days, I don't think so that is going to happen. But you can try your luck, but I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't rely on that all the time. So because we are recording it and it might be uploaded also, so I don't want to publicly recommend saying go to Amazon and say that I made a mistake after 30 days. So finally, moving on, use IAMs and tags. Almost always use IAM wherever possible. I cannot stress it anymore because quite often nowadays security teams and clients are coming up with this requirement in their bid itself. Use tagging policies so that you know what is inside the tag and what resources are built by whom. When you are using a CloudFormation, Amazon itself will add a certain amount of tags to each of those resources, but it is always good practice to you also to have your own tags attached to it. So use these best practices when you are creating a CloudFormation template, and the first two or three helps you to ensure that your template is error free. And of course, there is no replacement for a human logic. If you can possibly get it validated by somebody, that is also good. So basically, there are 3 or 4 ways to get your syntax validated. You can use the Amazon API. In other words, you can run a template from your command line. You can run the template from the console, or you can run it from something, a third-party tool like Terraform from HashiCorp. Or there are so many cloud management platforms are available. They all use some kind of an API to interact with Amazon. Some of them create a CloudFormation template itself. Some of them use Python or Java or some kind of an SDK. The fact is, you can validate your template using APIs, and as I said earlier, it checks only for your JSON syntax. It doesn't check for your logical errors. That is circular dependencies. Circular dependencies meaning, non-technical terms. Let us say that you are at step 1, you are expecting step number 7's output, and at step 7 you go and say I need step 1. This has happened in real time. I myself fell into this trap. I was looking for a certain IP address of a certain machine when that machine has still not completed its process of coming up online and being ready. So you might think that you have issued the command and you might wanted to do some downstream processing. The one activity we keep referring is the EBS volumes. And at steps number 8 or 9, you are looking for provisioned IOPS with a very high throughput, but it is still not ready. It is going to create some issues with your templates. This will create a performance issue of provisioned IOPS, But there are certain dependencies like taking an IP address and trying to assign it to a load balancer when the IP address is still not ready. So those kind of things also will happen. Take care of it logically. There is no substitute for a human logic here. As of now, at least, Amazon has not built anything to check for circular dependencies. This is completely a manual work. And your template structure, don't try to create your server first. Try to create the layer stack that I showed you some time back, the 6 or 7 layers that we spoke about: IAM, network, backend, front end, and all those kind of things. Have a logical organization. Don't start with the things that you are easier or most familiar with. So that way you can have a very clear logical flow of what you are building. Now we are going to see parameters field. Remember the options where we are trying to customize the template to make it more interesting for people who are using it. This is one of the examples. Here we are giving the option of making the parameters, whether it is the stack is in staging or production or development. You are giving these three different values. So this is the variable name and this is the variable values. The rest of all is like this is whether I want it to be default value, whether it is a type of value string or integer or characters, blah 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 things. And this is a generic description. What is this field is doing? And if you want to do a constraint description saying I want it to be either one of these two environments only, or I want it to be in Oregon. Say for example, you want a constraint description is your security architect says you need to use Red Hat 8 version only, no more Red Hat 7 is supported. Something like more information for the user so that he can make an informed choice of what to choose. Or something like, are you sure you are going to deploy in production? Have you taken necessary approvals? Something like that. It's completely, this text is you write, but to inform the user. So that is parameters. I think there's one more example for parameters. Let us see. Yep. This example is about VPCs and subnets and security groups. As you can see, this is an interesting parameter field, where the previous one you gave the input. Here I'm not giving an input. I'm asking Amazon itself to provide me the input. For example, I have given an VPC ID and I'm giving something like blah 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 AWS EC2 VPC ID blah blah blah. So what this piece of syntax does is it goes to AWS, it goes to EC2, and it goes to my VPCs in that particular region where I have opened my console, and it tries to find out what are all the VPCs I have and what are the IDs of those VPCs and list it in this field. If you remember in the previous parameter description, we saw production, development, staging. Those were the three allowed options. In this case, what will happen is it will give me an option of VPC IDs in my account. So that is what is going to happen when I give this command. So what will happen here is it will likewise, it will go and find out what are my subnet IDs listed for the VPC that was chosen here. And it will list those things here. Likewise, it does the same thing for security group and it will do the same thing for key names also. That is how you pick up values in your account. Say for example, I spoke about the key, that particular key that needs to be used for all the services, and your security architect has mandated that this key is 2048-bit encrypted and I want you to all of it to use it. Today, this is the key, and tomorrow he comes back and says, Mr. Harsha, that key is hacked. Somebody has hacked into our systems, so we are changing the key. Go ahead and start using this in your template. At that point of time, you don't want to come and update your templates. If you hard coded this field, you will have to update in each and every time key changes. You don't want to do that. So you want to choose what is the latest key that is available in the account and give the option for the user to choose that key. You don't want to hard code it in your template. So if you write something like that, automatically what is available in that account will be picked up and shown here. So you remove the headache of managing the keys from your responsibility and pass it on to the security team so that they can manage the keys for all over the account. And likewise, the security group also, you don't want to point out to a particular security group where the certain ports are open, not open. You completely outsource that responsibility to your security team, assuming they are there, of course, assuming they are there. and you use the security group IDs. If they are not there, those responsibilities also come to you. And just because you know that what key names are there, don't do that. Even in that case, go ahead and parameterize it, and then your scripts become very flexible and reusable. So moving forward,
Just to
so here you see the parameter field at the top of the CloudFormation console, and then you have your VPCs that will have a drop down. It will have the VPC ID, and it will list down your subnets, and this will most probably change based on the VPC that you choose. And you can see there the security groups are also listed, so that you can choose whatever security groups you want for your account. And remember, these are all listed options. When you say listed, it means that it gives you option of choosing multiple choices here. Whereas a VPC, I mean, you want a resource to be in a one VPC only. You cannot put a resource in multiple VPCs. So in other words, it will become a drop-down option. Amazon has made some of those logic very, very simple, so you cannot make an error in those kind of places. So moving forward, parameter constraints, remember the IP address or CIDR block we spoke about. Here I am particularly looking for source IP address from my end user. As you can see here, this is the source CIDR for my SSH server or jump server, and I'm saying this is my allowed pattern, and I want the characters of a minimum of 9 characters and a maximum of 18 characters. In other words, this will accommodate 255 blah 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 blah, all the 4 octets, and then this will accommodate the single digit IP addresses also. It will ensure that all the necessary IP address pieces are there. And you cannot enforce this regular expression will enforce that you are not introducing some alphanumeric or some crazy characters in my field which is expecting an IP address. Good behaviors you enforce sometimes on users, so that way it gets propagated all across the company. Mappings, do you really want me to talk about it, guys? And mappings, again, here mappings is on type of VPCs. Here you see I am giving everything here. I'm giving the user VPC, CIDR, subnets, blah blah blah, and everything is created here. And you can see here a nice split. If you want to use it for your any account, you can use a nice split, but it is /16. Try to play around with a smaller number, let us say /17 or 18, and how you achieve 6-way split. This is a 6-way split, yeah, 0 to 6. So 6 into 256, something like 1500. So how you find out how do you split all those IPs into multiple subnets, and what number should come here ideally. So try to play around with that when you're experimenting. And as I was saying, you can configure logs groups, and you can configure, once you configure your log groups, you can send all the logs to your log group, and CloudFormation will populate it for you, so that you can feed it to a Splunk, or you can feed it to your monitoring alerting system, whichever you choose, and then find out whether something goes wrong or something is going good. Either way you can do it. In other words, CloudWatch logs works very nicely with CloudFormation. And this is the interesting bit where you can integrate it with your CI/CD pipeline. Let us say your app commits have also happened to a version control system. And remember, now infrastructure guys are also coding. Interesting, isn't it? Infrastructure is a code. It is not anymore a database upgrade team, platform upgrade team, OS upgrade team. These guys are writing a template now. So cutover is nothing but a day where your code goes to online, not a day where you do yum update all or Windows update. Those are not the days. Days are gone. So you commit all your latest versions into a version control system, and whenever a version control system gets latest commit, it has the ability to send a webhook to any receiving downstream system. You can trigger a pull model or a push model. So this is a pull model, so the arrow mark actually should be here.
Hey Kumar, I have a question.
Go ahead. So in a way, another short summary for commit. Every change that you make has to go into the version control system, so everybody can see it, pull it, and update it. So once the version control system has an update, it can trigger a notification to a configuration management system or an orchestration system like Jenkins or OpsWorks, CodeWorks, Chef, Puppet, whatever you want to call it. And once it has the latest code, then it can start deploying it using CloudFormation commands, or it can trigger it other downstream actions. In this case, we are talking about AWS CloudFormation. So it will go ahead and pick the template from S3, and it will send the template to AWS CloudFormation, and that AWS will create the stack itself. And as you see that the pointer is going to dev and test. So everything testing is completed, then automatically your blue-green deployment, the test will become the live, and this guy will become the test for the next deployments. So this is, I wanted to make another slide, but I didn't want to make it too big. Like dev test becomes, live becomes dev test after this blue-green deployments. So that is for continuous integration. Let's just move forward. So this is a very, very simple demo app that we are going to build today using CloudFormation. I did not want to make it very complicated. It's very, very simple. It creates we choose a region, we create a VPC. Under that VPC, we choose a particular region and we create a subnet. And inside that subnet, we are going to create an internet gateway and security group. And inside that, we are going to create a web server and assign an HTTP server we are going to install and create a small sample website inside it. Website in the sense it's a single page, welcome to demo today, blah, blah, blah. So this is what we are going to do for now.
Hello?
Hello. There's a little bit of self-promotion here. Coming up next, this is my GitHub account, and this is the template that we are going to use now. I've given you the URL. You can go ahead and check it out, and you can see here there is blah 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 stuff about saying WordPress. Actually, it is not WordPress. I will eventually get to WordPress, but anyway, the fact is the small diagram that I showed you, the architectural diagram that we saw some time back, we are going to use that architectural diagram as a reference and going to build that architecture. And this is a nice description of what this template is supposed to do. And the template itself is in this file. This is the file. If I just click on that, it will open it. I opened it already. So the file looks like this. So let this be as it is. Or you want me to explain it? Let me better do that. Let me just zoom out a little bit so you can see. I see it a little bit bigger. If you remember the anatomy that we saw about a template, a stack, and all those things, here is the version. As I said, I'm using the version, eating my own dog food, and there's a description of my stack. Although it says a VPC network stack, it also has a web server. So there you see my dog food is not exactly complete. And here is the important parts of it, the parameters. First thing is I'm defining my CIDR block, and it's saying that this is my allowed pattern, and by default give this IP address. Although users can choose whatever you want, by default give this IP address. If they don't want to change it, they can just use the existing one itself. And I'm giving them a description. And also I'm creating my public availability zone, my private availability zone, my public subnet CIDR. And just for easy reference, I have given these names. These names you can change it. You can write whatever names you want. I like to have a very descriptive parameter fields so that my users can understand what I'm trying to say. Instead of saying AZ1 or PRIV AZ, pub AZ, that also works if your users are going to be smart enough to figure out what you are thinking. If not, they are going to call you and ask you, hey, Farsha, I'm using your template. I don't understand what this field means. Can you just tell me what should I put in here? That means that your template has failed, in my opinion. You are not having automated deployments. People are calling you still. So basically, we created VPC and split it into subnets and CIDRs. And if I scroll down, I'm creating an instance type. I'm going to enforce my user to use the T2 micro only. Since this is a demo template, even I myself don't like to have a build shock, so I forced my template to use only this one. When you are trying to do the demo now, I will just add some more, see what the value changes, what is the drop down option gives me. And here see I'm enforcing the key name by using a parameterized value here. It automatically goes to my account and checks out what is my key name, and I'm giving a default value also here. So it is not necessary that you have to give a default name because it is my account. I know that this is going to be there. I've just given it, but a user will have an option to pick it directly, and I'm not hard coding it, by the way. That's what the point I'm trying to make. So if they are going to choose a value, it will automatically go to the account and show all the values. Mappings, I'm restricting my users to two particular regions, and here instead of restricting them to availability zones, I'm restricting them to the type of AMIs that they can use. In other words, I'm asking them to choose a 64-bit AMI and the AMI ID. So you see the region map, the mappings field is very flexible. You can use it in multiple ways. I showed you an example of how to restrict them to certain availability zones, but I'm actually doing an example of how to restricting them to certain AMIs. So it is up to your imagination on how you want to use the mappings field. And say, for example, if you're developing a dev stack, you can take the value of dev stack here and say that you can only connect to a dev database. Don't try to connect to a production database. Since it is in the same account, AWS account, don't try to connect to a production database. So here automatically you will enforce the value of say db equal to dev database db URL, something like that. So all those kind of behaviors you can enforce by using mappings field. And finally, the most important part of it, resources. So we have collected so far up to 50 lines. If you notice, we have collected input from our user on how to set up our environment. We have not set up anything, just collected the inputs. Now we are actually setting up the VPC, and we are setting up the internet gateway, and you are attaching the internet gateway to my VPC. And why do I have to do that? And the route table ensures that all the internet traffic that is see here, I'm taking my internet traffic and sending it to my gateway. I'm referencing to my internet gateway. If you remember, I don't have the ID of those fields, but I need to create them. So what I do is I go and reference them by their name that I used here. If you see, I gave them the name of internet gateway and using the same reference here. And it asking me what is the route table ID I need to use. I'm giving something like RTB. If you scroll up little bit, I have created an RTB, which is nothing but a customized routing table. And this is another best practice that is coming from me. Do not edit the default route table when you create a VPC. Leave the defaults alone and create your own route table. Always. Do not touch the defaults. It might be very tempting because it is already there, and just modify it for internet routes. But leave that alone because it is for Amazon to deal with things. That is why they have created a default. If they thought that customers have to create it, they would have left it to us. So do not touch that, create your own, and then create your public route, that is internet traffic is going out. Then I'm creating my subnet itself, and you can see here very nicely I'm creating a tag here dynamically. My tag name, key name is name, whereas the value for the tag is very dynamically created. I'm creating using the name of the stack and using my public availability zone name also. With the combination of these two, my tag name will be created. So my subnet will be nicely associated with something like AP South -1A Valaxy demo for CloudFormation, something like that. We will see that when we are doing the demo itself, and I'm referencing it. So skipping the private subnet, which does the same thing, and I'm associating the subnet with my routing tables and other things. So you here, this is the RTB. RTB means route table in my world, and I'm creating the security group. Here you can see here I'm having inbound protocol of port 22. Basically not necessary, but if I want to troubleshoot or something is not working, then I need port 22 access. So I'm doing a from port to port and opening it to the entire world. This is not a security best practice. Again, don't do this in production, or don't recommend this to anybody. You need to give only a specific IP address here so that certain people only can access your machine. And since it's a demo, leave it as it is. And we are starting a web server, so we definitely are expecting traffic, and we want to be the next Bill Gates. So leave this to be 0.0.0. And we are setting up our web server finally. So far we have set up the network layer. If you remember, we have building stack by one stack at a time, that is one layer at a time. So network layer is completed, then we are going to come to a web server layer. And see, everything is referenced here. My key name is automatically picked up from the previous values the user must have chosen. And for image ID, it is picking up from my map. Remember the region map I created? From that region map, it is saying, depending upon that region, choose the AMI ID and assign it here. And instance type, remember T2 micro I showed earlier, that will come here. So everything is parameterized when I'm talking about my server. I'm not almost hard coding anything except for this one field where it says Valaxy to Valaxy CloudFormation demo. That is my home page that is expected to be started. So this is the code that you want to write, particularly if you're familiar with writing a little bit of bash. These 4 lines must be very straightforward. You can write, if this is a Windows instance, you can write it in PowerShell also, or VB script, or whichever is convenient to you. And Amazon expects it to be URL encoded, that is base 64 encoded. So I have to do it like this. This is a syntax. I cannot avoid these 2 lines. I assume everybody is familiar with the user data, so I'm just going to leave it as it is, because user data field is always expected to be base 64 encoded or URL encoded. And I'm outputting 2 to 3 different values. One of the value my outputting is my VP image ID. What is the image that I'm using? And then I'm outputting the public IP address of my EC2 instance. So that's a brief explanation about this. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to copy this into my notepad. So I click on raw, just Control A, Control C, and I'm going to go to services, and I'm going to type CloudFormation and click on this one. So which region am I in? I am in AP South now. Let me go ahead and quickly open my S3 bucket. I just want to show you something there. Come on. Okay, you can see here as of now, let us take this as a reference. There are 5 buckets and in 2 regions. So let us go ahead and create our CloudFormation using the console itself completely. I'm not storing it in S3. I'm not storing anywhere. I'm just going to copy paste the code. Very simplest way, not complicating it at all. So when you go into a CloudFormation dashboard, this is the dashboard here, and you have 2 options: create a stack. Let us click on create stack, and it is asking you how do you want to create your stack. Do you want to design it, or you have an existing template which is in some location, you want to choose it, or you use a pre-existing stack. This is all predefined by Amazon. You can click on it, Amazon will build these templates for you, or if you have it in your S3 location, you can click on this and choose your S3 location also. So we don't want to do all these things right now. Go ahead and design your template. Click on this option. So here is the interesting bits of the pieces happens. Amazon says that you can use your left-hand side resource types to build your template. Like for example, you can drag and drop things and it will work. I found it a little bit difficult to work with. But if you're comfortable, go ahead and try to build your templates. Amazon says instead of using your JSON and YAML, you can come here and configure most of the pieces and get the code written for you automatically. But I found it a little difficult to work with. But if you are feeling good, go ahead and try it. And I am using an YAML format, so I'm going to click on this option which says YAML here. So that let us click on that. And what I need to do is, here is, you can see 2 sections, components and templates. I am not looking at the components. I'm going to look at templates. So click on templates here. And by default, as you can see, the version is automatically given. So I'm going to paste my code, which might also have another version number. So I'm just going to paste my code, which I copied from GitHub, and go all the way on the top and see there are 2 version numbers. Although it is not necessary or mandatory, just remove one of them. And you see here, as soon as I change something in my template, it has gone out of state and it says hit refresh. Anyway, that is not important. The most important thing is this one. You see this tiny tick mark, guys, as it says validate template. This is the option that I said you can check for syntax errors. If you have written a template and you want to ensure that it is complying with the most of Amazon's guidelines of good template on syntax level, you want to paste it and click on this button, and you keep an eye out on this area because it quickly disappears after a green color notification. So I'm clicking on it. It says validate template, and if my template is good, it will say something like template is valid, and it will disappear. So we are good here now. We have copy pasted our code. We have validated our template. It is all error free. Now we can go ahead to deploy it. For deploying it to cloud, what you do is you do the same option next to it. Click on create stack. So automatically you can see here, automatically Amazon has uploaded to my S3 bucket here automatically. So although I can click on next and go to the next screen, let us go ahead to S3 console and quickly check out what has happened here. If you guys can see it, there is a new bucket created in my account in Mumbai region, and my code has been already copied to this. My code has been already copied to this from the template. And these are all the code related information that is inside the bucket. So anyway, this is not for us, it is for Amazon to manage it. And you can see here new.template, and I did not change the template name, so automatically Amazon has picked up the template name and stored it there. So moving back, all we have to do is in this screen click on next, and remember the parameter fields all that I have chosen here. It is giving me all that options that we chose some time back or provided in our template. CIDR block, I can write my own. This is completely configurable. I don't want to create a new subnet, so I leave it as it is. But what you can do is it is completely customizable. So you can write whatever you want here. But only thing is, if you create a CIDR block and you need to create a subsequent subnet inside the CIDR block. As I said, I'm not checking for logical errors in my template, and Amazon also does not check for logical errors. So if you create some other range here and then create a subnet some other range, it is not going to work. It is going to throw an error. So don't do those kind of things. My template does not do all those things, and it will fail, and your template will not be deployed. So don't try to check my template for those kind of things. So let us start filling it up. Stack name, I'm going to say Valaxy CF demo. This is my stack name. And do we have that IP address? No, I don't have that IP address. So I'll just go ahead and pick it up from here. Blah blah blah. This is my default. And what is the instance name we can give? See, this is all completely customized. I can write whatever I want here, and see here T2 micro. Remember the field I showed you, I want to enforce only one new instance, so it is there and nothing else that comes up here. And I am going to choose the key that is already available here. See, you can see here there are two keys. Mumbai trainer key, Valaxy EBS demo key 01. I'm going to choose this key because I have it already in my desktop. If I need to copy, I can use that. So I'm going to choose this key, and remember I did not hard code this, it automatically comes from my account. And availability zones automatically from the Amazon source. Subnet, you know whether you want to choose this or not. So we have chosen our private to be in 1A, so we'll make the public to be in 1B. So that is all that is to be done here. Click on next. If I can just go to previous quickly, you can see here small descriptions. This is the description field we gave in the template itself. It is not something Amazon provides. You can write this customized messages so that your users can make informed choices. And coming back, what other tags you want to create here? Again, I want to create Valaxy demo, or I could say CF demo run one. I can add one more, something like environment and as dev. You can keep on adding whatever you want, and mine is a simple demo. I don't need a role, so I leave it as it is. And remember this advanced, I would definitely want all of you to go here and get yourself familiarized with all these options. Very, very interesting options. Remember, I wanted to speak about the SNS topic, keeping the management outside of the template itself. So this is where you do that. You create a topic, subscribe to the topic, and send an email when the stack is completed, not completed, all those things here. Don't do that inside your template. And timeout. You want to wait, how long you want to wait? I'm going to say something like, I want to give 5 minutes for my template to successfully complete. If it is not completing, do I want to roll back? This is the option. Yes, roll back on failure. If I click on no, it will leave the resources in my account. And stack policy is something like if you want to update a push notification or something like unintentionally, I mean, you want to verify who can update your policy and then make sure the stack policy is updated only when certain people are uploading it. So you can have a configuration file and upload it, all those things, blah, blah, blah. But let us ignore it. I don't want to do anything here. This field is for new people. I'll explain this, but this is just a summary. We know this, what is happening here. So click on create now. This is where the fun and magic starts. As you can see here, nothing has happened. As usual, Amazon likes to hit us refresh once more time. Oh, stack sets. Oh, this is a new feature, stack sets. I heard about it in the Chennai or Bangalore conference. I have not started using it, but this is a new field. I mean, new set of information that Amazon is segregating here, stack sets. So anyway, I wanted to focus only on this point. We'll come to this one later. Let us close on this one. So it says create in progress. How do I know what is happening? So click on that, and then you probably have to click on one of these buttons. Let us do this one, middle one. So you can see that as well, this, and you can see here already it has completed a creation of certain things. For example, my demo VPC, my internet gateway, blah 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 things. Okay, so it constantly creates my network stack and everything. I'm just going to go to my EC2. Will that work? Let me close these guys. So as of now, one running instance, and you can see here, this is the one that is created today, just now when we started running it, Valaxy CF demo run 1. And let us go to our stack and see it has completed. It is still work in progress. And remember the output section, as of now it is still, oh, it's completed. It has given an public IP address. Let me just put it in the chat window. So, and let me put it in the browser also. If my web server is running already, we should be able to access it. If it is, the server is up and online available, we should be able to access that website. Let me just go and check whether, let us go to the VPC section and see what are all things have happened. How do I go to VPC? Let me click on the VPCs. So this is the one that my CloudFormation template has created. If I click on that, if I go to click on tags, we will see a whole bunch of them here. As you can see here, this is the tag that I created, name, and this is the environment that I created, and these are the 3 tags that Amazon itself has created based on the tags or stack information that it has. And remember the one combination of stacks I told you. Let us go to subnets. We will find that there. You can see the name tag for my subnet. It is a combination of my stack name plus the availability zone that we are talking about. Okay, somebody has already found out. Let me just go back to my CloudFormation template, and you see here the status is shown as complete, and just hit refresh and you go to events. Come on. Okay, it doesn't want me to, it doesn't want, okay, select on this one and events. You can see here the CloudFormation stack is complete, and that means that all our resources that needs to be created has been completed, and our website should be ready for browsing. So what I could have done, gone ahead one step, is I could have pointed a Route 53 also. I have a domain name, but I didn't want to set it up last night because I didn't have time. I could have pointed a Route 53, so something like www.myfavoritedomainname.com, which will point to my cloud formation. That is all there for CloudFormation templates. So we saw how a VPC works, or how a CloudFormation works, I'm sorry, how a CloudFormation works, how it sets up the entire network stack from VPCs, internet gateways, setting up the tags and routing rules. I'm going to open the default group that was created for us. This is the group, if I'm not wrong. And you can see here in my inbound rules, I have port 80 and port 22. And as you can notice, I did not log into the server. I did not touch the console for anything else. Everything was set up. So now I find that my stack is working fine. I don't need this port anymore. I just need to remove this port in my configurations, and also say that, just assume that I'm going to use HTTPS for my server, and I want to ensure that HTTPS port 443 is also required down the line. So I have two changes I have identified right now, and I want to make those changes in my template now. So what do I do is I go to my template. Let me just copy the template. Yeah, so now we have put it into our notepad editor or any editor of your favorite choice. This is Sublime Text that I use. I for some reason I like the
This is
color.
one of the good ones.
So I have copy pasted our template to our editor, and I'm going to find the section where we are having security groups so that we can remove port 22 and add port 443. So let me just scroll down and find out where is my security group. Here we go. It's all I have to do is I'm just going to remove this section, or in other words, 22 is not required and 443 is required. So I'm just going to say here 443, here also 443, and I'm going to change the description of this field also, saying enable HTTP and HTTPS access through port. And Amazon says that the documentation is the responsibility of a good developer, so I'll try to keep up with Amazon's expectations. So I've just updated it, and I'm just going to copy it, and I'm going to update my stack. So this is how you update your stack. Did anybody remind me? I gave a wrong number here. Bad guys, you guys are not telling me when I'm making a mistake. So this is the change I am going to do, but I'm not going to upload this because I'm going to make this change in the existing stack. In other words, we are going to update an existing stack. So let us see how to do that in the console itself. So I came here so that you know that where I'm going to make this change. This is the only piece, or let us even better is just copy this section of it, that is instance security group. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back to my console, which is having CloudFormation, and this is my stack is here, and I'm going to click on this option, and I'm going to, where is my option? Actions. Okay, here, update the stack, and it automatically brings me to this field and asking me whether I have the template anywhere else stored. I'm going to say no, I don't have it anywhere. I'm going to edit it in my designer only. Automatically Amazon goes to my S3, picks up the last template that we used and loads it here. So let us just,
Kumar, the thing is like your screen is getting hanged a lot. We are like, your voice is one step ahead of your screen actually.
okay, then I need to speak slowly. I cannot fix the screen.
Yeah. So yeah. because like you are like moving away, like no, the screen was previous screen, so we are not like trying to.
Okay, okay. I'll then speak slowly is the better option, I guess. Okay,
Yeah.
drag it like the Indian politician.
Thanks.
Okay, let us scroll down and find out where is our security group fellow, the dirty fellow. Yeah, here we go. This is the security group, and I'm going to make a small change in my security group. As I keep on saying, I don't want 22, I want port 443. So change that to 443. Again, change here to 443. And change this description also to say HTTP, HTTPS through port 80. Did I press page down? I'm sorry. So here goes 443. So this is the only change.
Uma, can you copy paste the code which you copied in the subline text?
No, I am not using it. We are updating a stack. We are not creating a new stack. Now I copied it to show you exactly where the edits are going to happen. In real world, remember we are going to use the source code version control system, and that version control system will trigger the change to your template and your provisioning systems like Jenkins or any other configuration scripts you might use. You're following me? I'm just removing the automation parts of it and doing it manually. How an update to a stack can happen.
Yeah, we understood this bit, but no,
Why you're asking me why?
you copied that. Yeah, that's what I was asking. So we could have just copy pasted, right? So I wanted to know if that option works here or not.
No, it shouldn't work because we are updating an existing stack and the code has to come from Amazon itself. I mean,
Okay, it should be done manually then.
once you come to this screen, you can copy paste it. But
Okay.
I wanted to show you how to an update stack works, and when you click on it, designer automatically it will go to my S3 bucket and pick it up and come and show here.
Okay, fair enough.
But if you come to the designer directly and then try to put a code, it will try to set up another environment like this for us. In other words, you would have created another stack which would also set up another web server, and instead of updating, we would have created another one. So as always, when you update it, also make a validation check, and you see there it says that I'm validating blah blah blah, and it is checking and it says validate, and then I'm going to click on create stack. Let us see whether Amazon is smart enough to find out that it is an existing stack only. And it does that. I've done this demo a couple of times, so it should automatically go and find out what is my changes, and it will say that some things I've only changed. It is uploaded to S3, and it will compare it and tell us in the next screen. Click on next, and you see there automatically all the fields are chosen, and it will not allow me to change certain fields here. Blah blah blah. Click on next. And click on next. I'm not changing any of those things here, and I'm not sure whether you can see it. It is showing computing changes, and it is showing me the list of changes or list of resources that are going to undergo changes here. And I'm going to pause here to ask a question. So Amazon has clearly documented what are the changes that is required. So let us click on update and see how soon the updates can happen. And let me click on that. Did it happen already? Let me hit refresh. So it says update in progress. Let us go to our VPC and see what is happening. Let us check whether the updates have happened already or not. So this is there's one more VPC. There is one more security group that is getting created. As you can see here, there's one more that is getting created with port 443 without port 22. And let us go to our CloudFormation template again. And it is still working on it. Update is in progress. It is updating the template and the server, everything. Let us wait for it to get completed. So we have now two security groups, and what is Amazon going to do about the old one? Whether it's going to keep it or Whether it is going to delete it, let us wait and watch. Anybody wants to make a claim? What will happen to the other security group, the old one? So as you can see here, the old security group with the port 22 is gone, and the new security group with port 443 is only there. So when you do a stack update and any redundant resources are there, Amazon automatically cleans it up in your account. You don't have that in your account anymore. So that always your stack is clean and with resources only what you need. So that is how we push an update to our server. And if you want, you can go ahead and I'm not sure whether the URL has changed. I'm just going to go ahead and paste it in another window to see whether the URL is still the same. Okay, it works and it is the same. So basically what we have done today is, or so far is, we saw why provisioning is required, why scripting is not good, why console is not good, why CloudFormation is really good, how to write a CloudFormation script, what are the important things, what is the parameters, what is the mapping, what is resources, and what is outputs, what is nested stacks, and how to create a stack and how to update a stack. That is all the things that we have seen so far. Good.